All right, let's talk about Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah, I know, the name alone can be kind of intimidating, but today we're going to dive into what he called his most personal work, his 1882 book, The Gay Science. And what we're going to do is unpack four of its biggest, most powerful ideas. Think of them as a kind of philosophical toolkit. And Nietzsche, he just does not waste any time, does he? He hits us with this bombshell right here, one of the most famous and maybe one of the most misunderstood declarations in all of philosophy. But here's the thing, this isn't some kind of celebration. It's actually a really profound diagnosis of the modern world, and it basically sets the stage for everything, and I mean everything that follows.
So that title, The Gay Science, I know, it might sound a little strange to us today, but what he's referring to is this idea of joyous wisdom. It's a nod to these medieval poets who had this really life-affirming, artistic approach to knowledge. See, for Nietzsche, philosophy wasn't supposed to be some stuffy academic exercise. No way. It was more like a form of convalescence, a way to recover from all these old, sick, life-denying values and, find a healthier way to live.
Okay, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to look at Nietzsche's diagnosis of the big crisis facing humanity. Then, we'll dive into the three powerful tools he gives us to deal with it. And finally, we'll put it all together into your very own philosophical toolkit. First up, the crisis, the diagnosis. So let's start with that explosive idea. You got to understand, Nietzsche isn't just trying to be provocative here. He's pointing to what he saw as the central crisis of his time. And you could argue of ours too. He's talking about the total collapse of the very foundation of Western meaning. Okay, so let's be super, super clear about this. He's not making a literal claim about, a deity. The death of God is a cultural observation. It's a metaphor. Think about it. For centuries, there was this one single source for morality, for purpose, for truth. It anchored everything, and Nietzsche is saying that anchor is gone. It's losing its hold. And what's left is this massive void, which leaves humanity with this terrifying but also monumental task. We have to create our own values now. Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine society is playing this super complex game, right? And for centuries, everyone knows the rules because they're all in this one ancient rulebook. Simple enough. But then, one day, everyone kind of looks around and realizes the rulebook is gone. It just vanished. The game doesn't stop, but what do you do, right? Do you all just descend into chaos? Or do you take on the really, really hard job of writing new rules together? And that, right there, illustrates Nietzsche's point perfectly. The old rulebook, the old certainties, they're gone. And what's left in its place is this terrifying freedom. It's exhilarating for sure, but also pretty scary. Because now we're the ones responsible for creating our own purpose. So that brings up a huge question, doesn't it? If the rulebook is gone and there's no external referee, how do you know if you're even playing the game right? How do you know if you've won? How do we measure the value of a life? Well, this is where Nietzsche introduces his next big idea, his new standard. So to answer that question, Nietzsche proposes this new standard. It's a deeply personal, psychological test, and he calls it the greatest weight. It's the idea of eternal recurrence. Now, what's so important to get here is that this is not a physics theory. He's not saying this is how the universe actually works. No, it's a thought experiment. It's a question aimed directly at you. And the point isn't to get a logical yes or no answer. It's all about your immediate, gut-level emotional reaction. Would this thought absolutely crush you, or would you greet it with joy? So just think about it. Really think. Your entire life, every single triumph, every dumb mistake, every moment of pure joy, and every second of gut-wrenching pain, all of it on an infinite loop forever. Would you choose that? It's kind of like your life is a movie. And at the very end, you get a choice. You can let it fade to black, or you can hit play again. But here's the catch. You can't edit a single frame. You can't cut out the embarrassing parts. You can't fast forward through the grief. The only way you'd happily press that play again button is if you genuinely loved the entire film, exactly as it is. And that is the challenge. So how do you pass a test like that? How do you get to a place where you can joyfully say yes to living your life over and over? Well, you need a very specific mindset. And Nietzsche has a name for it, a Latin name, amor fati. Amor fati literally translates to a love of one's fate. But this is way more than just gritting your teeth and accepting what happens to you. No, it's about actively loving it. It's about having the ability to look at every single thing in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, and see it all as essential. It's about saying a deep, profound yes to the whole shebang. Think about it like this. Imagine your life is a giant, intricate tapestry. Now, when you're up close, living it day by day, some of those threads look like a real mess, right? They're tangled, they're ugly. Those are the moments of hardship, of failure, of pain. But Amar Fati, that's the ability to step back and see the whole picture, to finally understand that every single one of those messy threads was absolutely necessary to create the beautiful, totally unique image of who you are. Okay, but you can't just sit back and passively accept your fate. That's not what he's saying. To actually love it, especially the tough parts, you need some kind of active internal engine, an inner force. And for Nietzsche, this is the fundamental driver of all life. He calls it the will to power. Now hold on, this is probably one of Nietzsche's most twisted and misunderstood ideas, so let's be really clear. The will to power is not about dominating other people. It's not about tyranny. It's about self-mastery. It's that deep internal drive we all have to overcome our own limitations, to grow, to express our strength in creative ways, to constantly become more than we were yesterday. A perfect way to picture this is a sculptor looking at a big, raw block of marble. The artist isn't trying to dominate the stone, right? They're working with it, overcoming its resistance, its formlessness, to bring out the beautiful shape that's hidden inside. The will to power is exactly that. It's that same artistic drive, but it's applied to the raw material of our own lives, our own selves. Okay, so now we have all the pieces. Let's assemble the whole toolkit. Let's bring these ideas together and see how they create this one cohesive system for living a powerful, meaningful life, especially in a world where there aren't any easy answers. You can see right here how it all just clicks together, can't you? First, Nietzsche gives us the diagnosis, the death of God. The old rules are gone. Okay, so what now? Well, he gives us a new test, a new standard to aim for, eternal recurrence. And how do we pass that test? We need the right mindset, which is amor fati, the love of our fate. And what's the engine that makes it all possible? That's our own inner drive, the will to power. Diagnosis, test, mindset, engine. It all fits. So in the end, none of this is supposed to be pessimistic or depressing. I mean, is it challenging? Oh, absolutely. But these aren't dead ends. They're tools. They're a roadmap away from despair and toward that very joyous wisdom the book's title promises. They're about creating a life that is so full, so affirmed, that you'd happily, joyfully live it again and again, forever. And that leaves us with just one last question. And this one isn't from Nietzsche. It's for you. As you look at this toolkit we've assembled, the diagnosis, the test, the mindset, and the engine, which one of these tools are you going to pick up and use first?